Great. Hey, thanks and welcome everybody to our July Technology Advisory Committee meeting. First up is to review the meeting notes from our meeting in June. Did everybody get a chance to look at them? Any changes or updates to them? Nope, nope. Looked good to me. On everything, as usual, you did an amazing job. So, all right, so meeting notes are approved then. And then let's go on to our second topic is a quick website update. And then we'll go into the department discussions that Joe and I and Melinda had. I apologize, I did not get a chance. And I know, Melinda, you've taken great notes. We'll compare them and get them uploaded to our SharePoint. Then I want to just touch on if there's any other 2023 budget items that we need to be addressing and anything else that's coming up. So big project is the website. Mike, you want to give us a quick update on the surveys and kind of where things are? And I know Joe sent out briefly before this a sample RFP for us to start working on. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. I shared, I think, with everybody earlier this afternoon, sent an email, an Excel spreadsheet that responses that we've got. Can you folks hear me already?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting some echo here. I apologize. So there are 35 responses that we have received. One of them came in through the zoning project map, so it's not kind of in the same format as the others, but I included it in the spreadsheet anyway. I also included a kind of a brief summary of the results. So in that the first response is an overall rating of the user experience. And there were 5 folks who rated it very positive, 12 who rated it somewhat positive, 9 who are neutral, and 8 who said somewhat negative. I will say it's always fascinates me when people respond to a survey like this and respond neutral. I always kind of assume that if people are going to respond to this, they will have either a positive or negative experience that they'll want to provide some sort of feedback on. And then there's also a list of the sites that folks recommended. I will say, looking over those sites, I had real mixed. They're pretty varied. Some of them are sites that I would not have thought of as being ones that we want to emulate, but that's just my own personal opinion. In the email that I sent earlier too, I put together just a brief draft of a message we may want to send to the folks who volunteered to be part of the focus group. And it looks like there were 15 people who volunteered so far. So that's more than I would have expected.
Yeah.
That's more than a third of the people volunteered. So that was a pleasant outcome, I think, from all of this. So that's where things stand as I see it.
Okay. Did you by chance look now? If we go through this list, and I printed off the little spreadsheet you had with the ones that they suggested, I'll tell you the DMV one does not float my boat. I would say that's not necessarily an example of something that we want to emulate. Has anybody looked to see how many of these? Is there any of these that are not Civic Plus? So do you know if there's any of any of these others of here? The Allegheny County one doesn't thrill me either, but to the rest of the group, are there any that you see that you say definitely we don't want to look like that are on this list? And let me read them out. It's Pittsburgh Water and Sewer, Allegheny County, Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania DMV, Manhattan Beach, California. That one I haven't looked at before.
It's probably because the Beaver Falls one is some independent group.
Beaver Falls is.
Yeah.
Ross, Mount Lebanon, Shaler, Pine, North Allegheny.
North Alleghany's isn't because it's Blackboard.
Oh, that's Blackboard. Right. So that one's a no. And then I know Cranberry, of course, had 3 Cranberry Township. How do I, and their bill payment, that's all Civic Plus. And then Upper St. Clair. Are they
Manhattan
Civic?
Beach is Granicus.
Okay.
I know that when every other time I click on the Shaler link, it fails. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't know if any of you had trouble, if you got the chance to look at Shaler, but
Shaler Civic Plus, Mount Lebanon looks like Civic Plus.
Okay. I just wanted to see if there was any that came up that had another vendor that we should potentially look at. Was my curiosity on this one. Is Ross Civic Plus?
Ross is Civic Plus.
And Beaver Falls, as you said, is an independent.
Yeah.
Independent.
Although Mount Lebanon and Upper St. Clair don't specifically say they're Civic Plus, but it certainly looks.
They don't say they're anything else, do they?
They don't say they're anything else.
Okay. What about, is anybody at all, how about the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority? Is that is? I can honestly say that's a site I have never looked at.
Yeah, Mount Lebanon is Civic Plus. They're loading Civic Plus content in there.
Okay. PTH 2.
Interpersonal frequency.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about them?
data-driven civic websites, it says.
Baltimore Police, Norman, Cobb County, DC Attorney General. It looks counties, cities, then they have libraries and utilities and stuff.
Is that one you think we should add?
I mean, when they're government civic ones are Baltimore Police, City of Baltimore, City of Norman, Somerville, Cobb County, DC Attorney General, San Mateo County, Wake County. I don't know, because it's considerably larger than.
Yeah, they're quite a bit larger than what we are. You don't see anything that looks to be about our size
Doesn't, I mean,
from what you can see as far as.
in government ones.
Yeah.
And probably if you go to utility, Boston Water and Sewer, Cleveland, Denver, Pittsburgh, Santa Clara, they don't have a lot. It looks, at least
Okay.
what they're putting out there.
Okay.
They're in the 6 digits in population.
Yeah, we don't.
City of Somerville's like 81.5.
Yeah, okay. I would say we don't then. If they're not, I think because we've got several good options for us, right? Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah, there's
Fun.
Granicus, Civic Plus, the
Where's my list? I don't know if I have it here with me, but we have them all. I don't think I have it with me. But Tricia, we've got it all. We'll get to. If you don't have it, we'll give it to you.
That's fine.
Civic Plus, Granicus, WordPress, Revise, and Community.
Yeah, those are the list. I knew you'd have that. I didn't worry about it. Okay. So I think we've got the feedback from the population. We've got the fact that we've got so many folks who want to participate. And Jack, that was a big kind of focus, make sure that we had community input. You know, I don't think anything, and Mike, I know I looked through all of those surveys. There wasn't anything that shocked me in the responses and the comments. Was there anything unique that you saw?
No, I wouldn't say anything shocking. No, I mean, there were only a couple of people had real solid suggestions. Few people were critical without having positive feedback to provide, direction to send us in, but no, nothing here that was shocking.
Okay. And you've all got copies of, all the details, so you can go through it. It's kind of big to print out, which is good. Okay, we've got a focus group to work from. Then where do we stand with, Trish, with the intern and the content side
We
of
had
this?
no hits from LaRoche,
Okay,
and we tried to get a temp in,
Yeah,
and the one individual who we were looking very forward to because of their web experience got another permanent position. And so the 3 or 4 other candidates that we've interviewed have either not been fulfillable because they just didn't have the skill set, or they became unavailable. And
Okay.
so they didn't want to travel a certain distance. So we have put that temp position on the back burner. Sandy seems to be handling her side well enough. And until we get results back from the website RFP, we were hoping maybe that would move into potentially the fall and maybe have another crop of students who might be interested at La Roche.
okay.
I don't know how that works with y'all's timeline.
Really, the timelines on this one is in a bit of flux. There's not a driving hard date that we have to get to because we've already passed the Savvy Citizen renewal date, right?
Correct. We renewed Savvy Citizen last week.
Right. So what we need to do is sometime between now and when we have to renew it again is when we need to be up and live, because I would really prefer not to be paying and have 3 platforms out there.
Correct.
I could live with 2 if McCandless and me is getting more hits and we can work in and integrate them tighter.
Yeah, I still can't live with 2 because McCandless and me for $13,000 a year is worthless.
I
mean, it's just, you're talking about, you're having more hits, but you're having 500 people maybe out of 29,000.
When's McCandless and me do?
It was paid in May.
So for a year?
Yes.
Okay, so then we need to work backward. When it was paid in May, so that means it's probably up in June. You probably paid it ahead of time. End of June?
It was probably at June 1st.
Okay. So that's our end date. Is then we need to have whatever is up and done by June 1st of next year.
And so that, yes, and I think if we work on getting this RFP out and selecting a company and then putting that process in place with the new town manager, and then we would be up and running in time to potentially get somebody from the fall semester when they're back in full session. I think it's more of a workable, or we could ask for an LGA intern in the spring. If we think we can find somebody there.
Spring is going to be cutting it because I think we need to do something in the fall.
Okay.
Because spring, a lot of that work is going to be the work as far as getting the website all set up, and getting content ready to go. If we don't start that till the spring, we'll never hit June 1st.
Okay.
In my opinion, Joe,
Well, and again, some of this is going to be dependent on the enterprise software and stuff too.
Right.
Because you're going to be adding functionality in from that. The reality is kind of porting over what's there. I would think that could be done in 3 months.
Yeah, that's not hard to just kind of pick up and move.
Right.
But it was the restruct, and we could put it.
Well, I mean, but some of it will be if you go with a different
frame,
it is going to shift some of the stuff.
It'll look better.
Yeah, it'll look better and be easier to find.
Yeah.
Is the intention to have the intern here for project start to finish, including the RFP reviews? It's more once we assign the agency. And then
It was more to do the creative work. Right. We were thinking more creative work, but now we had talked about a second intern to do the tech piece, like the kids you use. And the question would be, I guess, do we still need that?
Well, I don't know that was 100% focused on the website.
No, it's not on the website.
we really want a platform that we can train 3 to 4 staff members on, so that updates are not technically advanced. Something that not necessarily myself, but somebody with, my latitude that wants to put stuff up for audit or budget or what have you.
Right. Okay.
In my field.
Yep.
But if the goal is to get rid of Savvy Citizen and
McCandless and me.
McCandless and me, then that $15,000 will definitely be planning and calendar related.
Right.
So definitely
Okay,
needs a heavy calendar app.
yes. Well, then that gets kind of back to, not kind of, but that gets to, Joe, a bit of what you put together here.
Yeah, I mean, most of these are packages.
Yeah.
They're not anything. We're not reinventing the wheel with
No.
this. So I think, we take some of the stuff that Mike had and add it into the pieces and then just
Right.
finish that out.
Well, I think what we need to make sure is we do cover the functionality, kind of some of the unique functionality that is the calendaring, right, for the savvy citizen. Spell savvy citizen. And then McCandless and Me, which is the
interactive, the
Yep.
Q&A, and
community interaction. As well as the complaint system. I mean, we've got modules for that. Shouldn't we run that through the website? Is that going to be the best platform to do a complaint system versus?
it's a website that's mobile app.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and whether that's a direct module that comes off of whatever the ERP is, or it's some kind of interface between the two. I mean, I don't think we know the answer to that yet.
Yeah. But that's definitely a functionality we need.
Online payments.
Yep. But some of that, again, that's just this is a front end to your enterprise software.
I guess, and that's a question I would like to ask in the RFP, because we do that a lot when we're trying to shop software, is what do you have current interfaces built for? What program, like what programs do you have current interfaces available for us to piggyback on versus creating the wheel?
What about the payment piece?
Yeah, we definitely need the payment piece, whether it's built in, it's something simple. Well, it's got to interface with the two things. It have to interface with permits, tax.
I mean, do we just say the payment? Do we just say these things have to interface with Edmunds,
Springbrook,
and Tracer,
Tracer? I think so.
and ARC?
Yeah, whatever we need to interface with. Would it be, so Edmunds, Springbrook, ARC, Tracer, anything of the other software that we're keeping?
Some of the, I don't know if the online forms, to be able to build online forms to be fillable and then to be emailed. I mean, whether it's Melinda's stuff or some of the stuff we do for the pavilion, et cetera. And some of that might just be as the scheduling software on the calendar.
A couple of different ways to handle that. Plus we'd have, we've got some of that in the permitting, and some of that's come up, was it in Tracer or was it in Springbrook? One of the two. So we've got some of that
Might have
functionality.
been the MyGov part of
The MyGov, it was the MyGov piece of Tracer. Or should be Tracer.
Chapter portal that they can go in and fill out the apps.
Yeah. Yeah, so they can reserve the park pavilions, make things
Yeah, I
simple.
think that one was in the MyGov,
Was that MyGov?
the park pavilions.
Okay,
But Springbrook is just purchase some solutions
for
that
that.
might make that work.
Okay. What else? Is there any other software that, Jeff, from a fire marshal perspective,
There's one
or,
that Whistler's using for fire marshals, but I don't,
No,
Um,
I don't think he wants to continue. with
yeah,
that,
I
but
think they're trying to move him into
Yeah.
Tracer, right?
He did mention the ESO.
yep. He did. I'm looking to see if there's anything else. I don't see.
The Tracer might be able to do.
Yeah, some of this stuff.
And probably most of that is not on the public website.
Yeah, that's not public. That'd be internal stuff. I was just looking to see if there's anything else, and there wouldn't be anything from Chief Hawk's perspective, from the public perspective, except for a complaint.
It would be more the right to know stuff, the requests for right to know for him, and because that'll be going with the body worn cameras and things of that nature, but that would be a fillable form that we
Okay.
talked about.
That's forms. Okay. All right. Mike, do you want to maybe take some of this ideas, and I've been jotting it down. I can send it to you if you weren't taking notes on what we were talking, and maybe take a snap, like grab it, updating the framework for the proposal
Sure,
and kind of flushing out to the next level for them.
sure.
And then, timeline is we must be live by no later than June 1st. Let's do a target May 1st. Can we target May 1st?
Oh, I would target like January 1st.
Question would be from a budgeting perspective.
From a budgeting perspective, 2022 has 25 grand in it.
Okay. So,
And then next year you would have the 15 that's in the budget currently potentially for
22.
Okay.
Okay.
up to ongoing costs.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the drop dead has to be May 1st. It'd be nice to get it up definitely earlier, but we have to be live. If we're going to drop the other two, we have to be live by May 1st.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'd like January 1 too.
I mean, if it gets awarded by the end of August, better.
Yeah.
September, October, November, December.
But let's see. So if we get you, because I'm concerned about
You're gonna lose-
bandwidth for you all.
You're gonna lose December because of staff schedules.
Yes, I know we'll lose December. So if we think about this from a timing, let's put a timeline together with everything else that you've got going on, considering we're short a town manager at this point in time. If we get this next kind of round done
Mhm.
in, this is beginning of July, by the end of the month.
I was gonna say, if we post it August 1st and we have the results by September 1st.
Okay, so target is to post. Do you need us to once we get you a basic framework, because you guys will want to add stuff to it
Mhm.
that you need for your,
Sure.
and flush it out. So we'll get to you by the end. So target is to post August 1st. Responses due September 1st. Do we need to have time for questions and all the rest of that kind of stuff?
I mean, we could, yeah. Yes. I mean, depending on who you get, normally we interview the last two candidates at least.
So we do September interviews and then potentially award. Earliest would be October 1st and latest would be November 1st.
We could try and get it for that last meeting in September,
Okay,
which is the 27th of September. We could do contract award on the 27th of September.
that's pretty aggressive. Do you guys have the bandwidth to do some of this? Or do we need to push it out to October?
I mean, we should have the town manager in place mid to late August at the latest.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on their desire to be involved in the process, I don't know that they will be.
Right.
And so it would be more my staff and, John.
Right.
So that's the question comes in is, we're going to be building this website and then eventually interfacing it with software.
Uh-huh.
So that won't happen until November, December at the earliest.
Well, yeah, that won't, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the
But
bandwidth.
getting them in place, I want to get it on this year's budget calendar.
Right.
So, I mean, at this point to pick this type of vendor, I don't think it's going to take as long
No.
as some of the other ones.
No, it's not.
So I think September 27th
Okay.
is probably a good date.
Because the reality is, I don't think there's a lot of heavy lifting in
No,
the beginning of this with the
No.
staff either.
no. I just wanted to double check and have a chance to make
We're
sure
good.
that we're not.
I think we can be good with that.
Okay, great.
the biggest thing he'll have on his plate in the fall is the calendar prep for fall year,
Okay,
which is part of this project anyway.
got it. Okay. What else? Anything else on the website? Thoughts, comments, opinions? What else we need to be doing at this point? Okay. Moving on. For the department, they were really good meetings that we had with Jeff from Public Works, Jeff Wisser, our fire marshal, as well as Chief Hawk. What this was, Jeff, was an opportunity for us to just sit down and see what kind of requirements they have across all technology. So not just software, but of course, that's a key thing. Just get their input as to what should we be planning for, what could we help do research on to try and offload some of it from the town staff. So Jeff actually put together a 2-page document that we'll upload. Mine's got, do you have a clean one? Mine's got notes all over it. We can upload mine.
Miss Listener or Shaman?
Shaman. He
I
put,
can look and see if I have a second copy, but I wrote all over.
I got notes all over
I'm
mine.
sure he can email you a fresh.
Yeah, then we can upload to it. I would say and speak up, because
Yeah.
you're here. One of the things we hadn't really talked about that he brought up was most of this stuff we're gonna address between what we're doing with the enterprise software, Springbrook, Edmonds, and Tracer. I was going to just cover a lot of it. He would be a happy camper versus what he has today. But one piece we spent more time on was the time clock. And we hadn't really talked much about that and making sure that whatever we do helps, because he said there's a lot of missed punches on the time clock. There's no tech support on the time clock. The guys punch in and out multiple times. If they go over 24, they got to punch out and punch right. It just is a lot of manual work for him and the guys. So that was a piece that we had not really addressed, was really looking at a time clock. He did say that of his time, he probably spends 15 to 20% of his time doing manual tracking, not of time clocks, but of payroll, of all the miscellaneous, because his guys have multiple contracts. It's just all very manual in there.
And we have looked at employee self-service modules in both
Right.
of the new softwares.
Exactly.
Yes.
And he was thrilled to hear.
And they can do that from their phone, correct?
In at least one of the versions. Yes.
Because a lot of the stuff like scheduling work and assignments for, current and future projects, job costing, that's all done on just a spreadsheet that he tries to keep up to.
So Tracer, if it's like another software that I've used that's similar to that, can job cost based on
Yeah.
work order.
Right.
And the question I have though is if we're gonna have the guys doing stuff on their cell phones, right now they receive a stipend for winter season. And so is that going to entail us buying cell phones for all of Public Works?
I don't know if it needs, but they're going to have laptop. They're going to have terminals and stuff where, so I think
Yes.
as we progress along this path, we're going to need to flush out some other things. That's not a 2022, but as we head into 23 and we really decide how we're going to implement some of this, we're going to need to be aware.
Because yet, like you said, terminals or something, because they don't even have their own email accounts
Yeah,
right now.
I know. So we may be doing some of those kinds of things when it comes time for it, to figure out what's the most cost-effective way to increase the productivity.
Yes, their time clock is very antiquated.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, typically what I would see in those scenarios are you put something in for them to use, and then if they use their phone, you craft a policy that basically says, if you choose to use it on your own phone, you're using it. It's not, yeah. Because it really becomes a convenience thing, because they can put PTO requests and all that kind of stuff in from their phone among all the other things that are available. So, I think if they use their own phones, you can craft it in a way that the town doesn't necessarily have to pay for.
Joe can help guide with some of that. Some of the things obviously on the logistics and road maintenance I thought was interesting is that we don't have any records of all the crosswalks out there, or what status that they're in, or guardrails. So I know Tracer can do some of that stuff. So, but in order to implement it, it's going to be a lot of data entry. So it's going to take time.
A lot of that is in Excel. A lot of those are Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, that may or may not be up to date. So
And a lot of that could go into ARC as well.
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
it could absolutely go into ARC. Other than that, those were the main things that I had. Scheduling the maintenance. Or maintenance has all been reactive versus planned maintenance, and so we got into all the discussion about that. How much they're wasting, when things because they're not doing proactive.
Ron has a scheduling software for maintenance that he's using. I think it's antiquated,
Yeah.
but he does have something that he's using, and they recently bought a diagnostic equipment for him as well.
Good.
So we've upgraded his a little bit. I mean, but not quite as far as we should, but
We're getting there.
Yes.
We're getting there. So those, and again, we'll upload the 2 pages here. Any other thing that was highlighted to you?
No, I
that
mean,
was
I think he went into a lot of the fleet management stuff.
a lot of fleet?
And I think that's gonna always be a challenge,
Yeah.
because it's just not a big enough fleet for,
you wouldn't think that if you saw that it's 22 pages in Excel for the budget document for the amount of equipment that he tracks for me for the budget.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's antiquated in that it's in an Excel spreadsheet, and that it's 22 pages long.
22 pages. Yeah, and it's hard to find anything when it's 22 pages long.
You have to know a vehicle number in order to find stuff.
I got the feeling that he wanted a fleet management system that was like what the county or the state would have versus.
I'd be happy with something that rolled into the fixed asset system,
Yeah,
so that
right,
I could
exactly.
know.
We need to walk before we run.
Yes.
If we can just walk instead of crawling,
Yeah.
that will be progress.
Good fixed asset, whether that exists inside of
Springbrook or
Right. or
Tracer.
Trace
Yeah.
wherever.
or even if, again, not that I want to split anything up, but Thomson Reuters, there's a bunch of fixed asset programs.
And that's where we're at right now, is
Okay.
that we want that GPS software for
Right.
the trucks. But realistically, I think that some of the financial ERPs have a better fleet management in the fixed asset model with work orders attached to it. So that's what we'll have to cost analysis.
Yeah, but we also know the GPS stuff is a request from council to have GPS tracking on the trucks. So that's to try and balance and how we can get all the right without spending a fortune. Buying duplicate things, because that's not in the game plan. Anything else then on
Not for public works.
anything? Melinda, am I forgetting anything from the notes you took?
Marcy, you're gonna give me these lists for the budget prep process?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll give you all this. Don't worry. You'll get this, and then I'll throw.
I told all of them, I said, Mama, just think of me as sitting in the back of the room going, you want what?
Well, as you said, a lot of this is already covered on what we've been working on. But some of the points, right, the fact of how much time he's spending on things that he thinks he can get back, and some of the other points. So
Well, some of his reminder, like couple computers in the shop, some
Yeah.
TVs to put the schedules up on the wall,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
that's not even really he's not
I
really.
was gonna say, he got some of that stuff this year already.
Yeah, it just needs a few more, and those things aren't expensive. So, okay. Then for Jeff Wishner, that was a much shorter discussion. What he's really looking for is, some pre-planning software, help him understand the layout of the buildings. He was talking about the ESO suite.
And that's something that the fire departments are also asking for.
Yeah, it's 11,000 per year for the fleets. That's not in the budget today. That's
No,
what-
because they have a software that they have currently that it just isn't doing what they had bought something and it's not.
It's not
filling the
doing what
need.
it's doing. So he likes the ESO, and it should all be together. This inspection software he's using, Mobilize, it's okay. We all know it's just okay.
And that, if that's the Tyler product,
Yeah.
that is one that is going to be, it's not going to continue to be upgraded. It's kind of reached its shelf life, is
Yeah.
what I've understood.
They've got a couple of them out there that,
Mhm.
but and Fire hasn't done much as far as their infrastructure. He wants a tablet. He wants he would like a docking station for his tablet.
He has that in his truck.
He now has a dock. He said he didn't have a docking station. Okay.
Yeah, we bought him that a couple months ago.
Okay. He wants to be able to look up codes from the field, and then we spent time. We spent a lot of time talking about his emergency management stuff that he wants to do. And is that going to be in this room or the conference?
So I would like some kind of budget, because the town has not budgeted specifically for emergency management operations in the past. And
Mhm.
so when we started that in my past life, we started with a small budget and then gradually increased it over time.
Okay.
But yes, the emergency management center, depending on the severity of the event, would be either in here if it's a small event, or potentially in here if we had to pull in other resources with a variety of staff members. A large event would need a space like this.
Right.
So we're equipped right now with TVs and the like. It would probably require some rewiring to get it more
Mhm.
accessible. So those are things that we would need to look at, because this was initially wired for pre-COVID
Right.
meetings, and now we're post-COVID. And then if we want to alternate it for various purposes, there needs to be more flexibility in the setup.
Okay. Is this something that you want for 2023 budget? Or is this we can limp along with what we've got, we're going to target more for 24?
That's my question about your process with them. Did you ask them to prioritize
No,
things?
we did
Okay.
not, but we can go back.
So, and that would be a question I would have, is that if you had to prioritize, what do you need now versus what can you wait a year or 2 years for, or 5 years for?
Okay.
That helps me do a 5-year strategic plan for IT,
Okay.
and that would be awesome.
Okay. I can go back to Jeff
Okay.
on that one.
Well, and even I thought with that, shouldn't it go downstairs?
I-
I mean, shouldn't your emergency
There's no
operations?
room downstairs.
But
And Jeff doesn't have an office Jeff's our fire marshal.
Right.
And so the
Right.
idea being, it was more of a space availability.
Okay.
And it would be more of, you usually tear down an EOC in a municipality level. We're not a county EOC that's a full-time, all the time kind of thing. We
Right.
need something that's mobile.
well, maybe revisit that after we talk about the police one, because I think it's combined.
It
The
really,
reality.
I think some of it is too.
When we get into the license plate readers and all that kind of stuff, it would seem to me that if there's cameras going up all over town, you would want your emergency operations center to be where you can see all those cameras.
Well, and that's, if you're having, I think you need the cameras first before
Right.
an emergency operations center, because if you
Yeah.
if you're just watching national news, we can all sit here on our phones and watch the news in the weather.
Well, and then again, in my past life, we could dial into different cameras based on the computer we had in front of us. It was just,
But we need cameras.
and that's a hurdle you'll have to get with the 7.
So we'll get to that in a moment. The last, because that's, I think, is the more important one than this emergency center. The other quest he had, he wanted all the fire trucks to have a laptop or a tablet to access info. But I'm not sure that's a town, I'm not
That's
sure.
more of that's their budget.
Right,
request.
versus our budget.
Which is a difference this year, that the fire departments are giving us a detailed budget request as to what they need for what.
Okay,
So that'll be new.
okay. So Chief Hvac, we also had a really good discussion with him. First, he talked about the automated external, the defibrillators.
Yes, the
That's-
AEDs.
Yes, the AEDs.
We've been looking for a funding source for those new batteries.
Yes, so that every car needs one. Currently, they're very old. and number don't necessarily work, so.
They've replaced those batteries sparingly
Yes.
as they malfunction.
So the question we had is there any potential grants out there
Yes.
that we could leverage for those guys?
The Pass Event Foundation has just donated AEDs to Peebles,
Oh, good.
and that's somebody that we have approached in the past.
Okay.
HN is another resource potentially, and then there are private along the way.
I think since those two have a big footprint here and don't pay any taxes, that they should give us something for the fact that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so there's approximately 13, 14 police cars
Yeah.
that are patrol, and then there's an additional 4 to 5 that are
And
non,
that all need them.
and they would all need them.
Do you need us to do anything on those, or?
It just kind of an ear to the ground kind of for grants for that kind of technology. It's
Mhm.
always appreciated.
Okay.
That's something that we continue to address.
Okay.
Because like, I think to replace two of the batteries was a couple grand a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not inexpensive at all.
So then the next thing, so maybe, Craig, you do a lot with the grants and stuff. Could you maybe let's poke around and see if you see anything grants for AEDs, the defibrillators?
Is he
Sure.
frozen?
Yep. Second is also one of our favorite topics. It's also one of Craig's, is the license plate readers, the LPRs,
Talking about the ones on the cars or on the
traffic signals.
cameras?
Traffic signals.
Traffic signals. He had 1, 2, 3, he's like 4 or 5 that are high priority for him. It was a big, discussion with him on that we really do need them because we're a dead spot.
We're the black hole.
Yeah.
Ross has them, Hampton has them, Shaler has them, Northern Regional has them, Cranberry has, everybody. has them.
Everybody has them except for us.
And what, I think in the ideal world, he gets 14 or 15 of them, like every, I guess it's not every, because like what are there, 20,
There's 20 some odd.
26 or 28 traffic lights in the
Yeah,
At
town,
least
but
26, yeah.
getting the important ones on 19 and McKnight.
Yeah, we talked about McKnight and Duncan, the southern end of McKnight and Peebles or Babcock, putting one there. Perry Highway and Richard Michael.
So the conversation with the cameras, he has talked to McCandless Crossing about potentially funding the one there at Duncan and McKnight.
Mm-hmm.
He initially had 2 cameras. We had 2 cameras in last year's budget for CIP, and they were cut at the last minute for
Right.
stormwater improvements. So again, we continue to propose them, and then whether they make it to the final draft, that's something that he needs to continue to champion. And I think eventually it'll come through.
Yeah.
But the question becomes, how many do you do and how often? Because Jeff has a number of signals that need to be replaced within the town. And so if we did it as part of those replacements, would we be able to tap into some additional grant money with our Greenlight Go and different things? But I think the biggest hurdle is the misconception that what they're used for. And
Yeah.
so that's the big question. And I also we've talked about needing to tie into the county system so that it's not just, while we don't want to be a black hole, we don't want to be a crop circle. So that, that we're being able to use throughout other agencies and municipalities so that it's a continuous stream
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
throughout the county.
Right. Throughout. Mhm.
And I don't know if there's some uniformness in the other municipalities or not. I haven't talked that detailed with Ryan on it.
Okay.
But those are
It
questions I
sounded
have.
like there is.
I think so, based on what he was
I
saying.
mean, it sounds like that, once you get in that, they can cross, there are ways to, basically somebody robs a bank, you can follow them,
Yes.
Well, where they
so you
go.
catch them, that kind of stuff. I mean, we also discussed the fact that some of the stimulus money from the county that was gonna supposedly there was a county money that was gonna come down for body cams.
Mhm.
And
And the
since we already,
potential was since you just bought all the body cams and got it with a different grant, use that same grant money for license plate readers, because it's the same concept.
we do need some of that grant money because of the body cams. Apparently the redaction software was not included.
Correct.
So, and that's about 12 grand.
Mhm.
And his estimate on each of these license plate readers is about 14.5, which sounds about right. Craig, that sounds about right, isn't it? License plate reader, the cameras, you did some research on that earlier. 14.5 or so.
Depending on the hardware unit, yeah, it's ballpark right.
Yeah. So that's a good, so that's a decent number.
That's a number I've used in probably 5 years ago, so I would want to update that.
Yeah, so update it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that was, he did say that, and Northern Regional doesn't have the redaction software either. So it wasn't included in the bid. Or installation, the body cams, apparently, I thought it was, we had asked about that when we originally did the body cam stuff, but
When it came down to it, because of the, was it because of the car cameras that we
I
were?
don't know.
Yeah,
He was
the plan is to use either somebody through PM or somebody that was recommended by WatchGuard.
We should use somebody recommended probably by WatchGuard, is what we talked about. Because, I mean, PM I'm sure can do it, but I think it would make more sense.
I think they were going to tap it out.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think that makes sense. The other thing we talked about is the laptops for the cars, is they're being replaced, so we don't need tough books in them, just regular laptops, which will save money for us, is those need to be
yeah,
replaced.
he's already communicated that to Andy.
Okay, good.
Good. I mean, because I think that was one, when we did this initially 3 years ago or whatever, they needed to replace
No,
most of the cars, and they've replaced like none of the cars,
right,
one or two of the cars.
Yeah.
They've received 5 cars in the last 3 years. So if,
Well, I mean,
if
for
they,
the tough book laptops inside the cars,
yes.
they were pretty old, and then I think they
So,
took
yeah.
even old ones off the shelf and put them in to
Yeah.
kind of fix it.
So when they're outfitting new cars, the laptops aren't probably a realistic item to be converted. It should probably be outfitted as part of the new outfitting price should include a new laptop. Because if the car's running us 5 years, then that's probably what the laptop will run us.
The couple other things he did say, it would be nice to have printers in the cars.
That's in plans for the budget for 23.
Okay,
We've already priced them.
okay, about $400 pop. Okay. We also talked about the WatchGuard cameras that's in the cars is getting ancient, replacing the hard drives. It's probably 5 to 10 years old. It's not on the list for the future. That's not an immediate request, but that's a
Probably should be the same thing when you get a new car.
car, you get a new,
It's just part of it.
just part of it.
I'm sorry, what was,
The
Yeah.
cameras in the car.
The WatchGuard cameras in the car.
they have a longer useful life than that. But I don't know the actual one. So, and that's my question is we went with WatchGuard for body worn cameras because they were compatible
With
when
it's in the
with
car.
cars. And so I would want us to get some kind of routine price because of that, to funnel out anything. And if they're telling me now that the cameras aren't good, then why did we
The
go with
cameras are
They're-
starting to
they're
get
starting to
aged.
age.
This was not they need to be replaced.
Mhm.
This was, we need to plan in the future.
Okay,
This was a raising the flag, but this is not a 23 kind of thing. This is, but
I just wanted to make sure we weren't using antiquated equipment
No,
to
well, I mean,
buy
I
new
think-
equipment.
He's talking about they're having to replace some of the hard drives.
The hard
And
drives.
My assumption on that is they are 5 years old.
he was thinking 5 to 10 years old.
Mechanical hard drives, which you would expect to have to replace some of those in a car.
Yeah,
And that, as that switches to, now it would be solid state and there's no moving parts and it's more durable, but again, if it's only replacing hard drives, it's like a wear part, it's like replacing brake pads.
right.
If the cameras are breaking, that would be a different.
He did not
story.
mention.
It did not sound like it.
It was only and I wrote down, it says it needs to be on the list for the future, not, this is not an immediate.
I would love for this to be in conjunction with Andy with a 5-year strategic plan
Yeah.
for, is that the end deliverable?
Yeah, well, that was, I mean, that's part of it, because we spent some time with Andy first, then we sat down with these guys. I need to go through and I'll write up
Mhm.
what we had, send Joe to you and Wanda for input, make sure we forgot, and then we'll get it with Andy and we get with others, as well as the rest of the committee, so.
In addition to them saying that this is a priority 1 or this is a priority 2, I'd also like y'all to kind of tell us what makes sense to replace first, so
Absolutely.
that we're not backing up on things that we've already
Absolutely.
bought.
That's what we're here for.
Great, thank
That's
you.
what we're here for. The last thing was we did touch some on the cameras in the parks. You know, again, he was thinking, you know, that would be good to have some cameras down in the parks to see what's going on. It is not a higher priority for him as getting him on the traffic signals at the intersections, but that would be helpful, especially, you know, because they are getting some vandalization down at some of the parks. So
And again, there were a couple in this year's budget and they got cut.
right, I know.
I mean, I come from a community that had cameras, and I agree with them. They're a great deterrent.
So it would be helpful to hopefully we can start getting some cameras in the budget. It's moving forward. So that was basic. Do you have anything else in your remember?
No, I think that's,
Just the computer for the intern, but that's this year, not next. year.
Yeah, that's just a simple, that wasn't a big deal.
Can they turn use of iPad?
I would think so.
So
Sorry, I missed the competition.
their intern,
Mhm.
just a computer or an iPad, whatever for it, but that's it this year. That you guys are already working on, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Any questions from anybody about the conversations that we had? As I said, I will document and send on out, and we'll get some
Great.
prioritization, especially from Jeff.
Like I said, I love a 5-year so that I know this is what we need to put in every year.
I think some of it is going, once we get some of this enterprise software, then we've got a real basis, and then we can start adding stuff to it, because like a lot of Jeff S's stuff is going to be covered.
Yes.
And we need to just see how much we can get, so. Okay, good. All right, that is the department discussions. Any other budget items for 2023 that we need to be researching for you or doing anything about?
Those 3 probably covered the majority because we've got a lot of John's stuff in this year's budget.
Right,
My stuff and RJ's. It's probably
okay.
a good start. The only other one would be with Frazier, if he needs anything with his vehicle and but I think he's good at this point.
so there was some discussion about HVAC upgrades and everything in here. When is that?
Jeff Shaneman is working with a couple different vendors at the moment to generate plans based on a previous plan. Again, it was pre-COVID. So post-COVID, there's different UV lighting requests and things like that. So it's not what it's called. I apologize.
I guess I'm thinking there was some, I think Kathy brought it up, but the ceilings coming out.
Should we do rewiring at the same time?
Yes, and that's the intention.
Is that in 2023?
Yes, it would. We've missed the window because ideally a lot of that work would need to occur in the first or second quarter due to the amount of additional citizens that we have in the building in third and fourth quarters. And so the hope was that we could get a better work plan, because there would be times that we would need to close sections of town hall. And of course, like, we can't close this room because of the public meetings for a long period of time. So there was some, it was more of a work timeline that we were trying to work through. And then of course, cost of things right now is also driven that project cost up.
Significantly, I would
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So the goal on that would be more, potentially it would not be until first or second quarter of next year. But the hope is to have that plan and process.
Because we should be doing, if we're gonna move the server and do some of those kinds of things, And even doing some of the wiring, even though we've talked about that the emergency management session, may not be implemented, but it'd be good to get the wiring in for whatever we think is going to be coming up too, for any tech requirements.
Because the problem is always, where do we put it?
Right. So
Because every time we think we have a place, it either doesn't fit or we can't get it in
need a
there.
bigger building.
Well, I think a lot of the network wiring in here is probably 20 years old.
At least, probably.
So, I mean,
That Thomas Edison wired this place.
perhaps.
Well, why not?
Perhaps, but it
I'm not so worried about the network wiring as I am the electrical wiring.
well, I
Because the
mean-
network, I don't believe was really here before 2020. I mean, Melinda would be able to
the
tell
network.
me better. Like the Cat 5 stuff for the computers, and is that what you're?
Yeah,
Yeah, so because there wasn't email until into the 2000s. So I don't know what.
Maybe 2012, 2015
Really?
emails. It's for every.
what computers that were on the internet,
We were to get onto the internet.
computers that could get on the server.
We didn't have a server until the tax office, I believe, had a server, but we did not get on the server until the same time.
2012.
Yeah, someone more.
It's not such a big deal.
Have to check. I mean, PM did say that the wiring was pretty old, and I would kind of go on that assumption based on looking at some of the things.
And it might be from the tax, if they just adapted what was for the tax office.
Well, that's probably the bigger problem, is that's why it's in the kitchen, because it just got thrown.
Thrown over their space, and then was there.
And that didn't used to be a kitchen. That used to be a coffee room. And then they put a kitchen in.
Oh,
So.
so then that's even worse. Hey, let's put the
Because
kit-
when we first had permit LV, I think we got that in 2006, we were on 95, so it was right on our computers, not the server. Like our Windows Pro.
Oh my.
Well, I mean, that's probably a fairly substantial line item to kind of
Yeah, so
put the wiring up to speed. Get the server out of a common area like that and have some room, some flexibility when you do have to. It's kind of a mess the way that, like, you have to rewire everything to there.
We had Andy's play with it. I mean, play with the idea of moving, because we initially were going to move it over to the side of the building, and he had the plan for that, and then some hiccup occurred, whether it was cooling or what have you.
yeah, he talked about a different room. So we just want to make sure that when we do the HVAC stuff, we got ceiling tiles down, that we've got all the wiring, that we really take a good look at and make the moves that we need to make for the,
You can do it in pieces.
yeah.
You don't have to rewire the whole building, but if you're gonna rip, if half the ceiling is gonna come out, then
Sure.
rewire that half.
Let's
And
not do it.
Absolutely.
Any other business that we need to discuss this evening, folks? All right, Mike, all good. Jack, anything else from
Did
you?
a great job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for your service.
All right, then do I have our next meeting is August 3rd. The summer is just flying by. Do I hear a motion that we adjourn for this evening?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy.
Thank you all.
Have a good one.